Hi everyone, I am going to record the video for lecture number 1 and lecture number 2. And since this is a lecture that I'm recording after the lecture actually has been ran live with students, so the intent of this video is twofold. First is for students that never was able to make it to the first lesson or the second lessons in person due to whatever reason. I think there was a bit of a confusion from a schedule point of view. So I know that you will actually have the PDF version of the lecture, which is usually sufficient, but I just wanted to kind of create a short video. I'm aiming at maybe about half an hour each, just so that I get run down of the things that perhaps I find important. And so when you go through the notes, that you can get reinforced in some of the things that I think is important for you. Okay, so let's get started. For the first lesson, since it was an introduction, there was actually a lot of stuff that are pertaining to just the introduction. So I'm going to skip through most of them. Okay, so let me get this working. Okay, so in the class we introduce ourselves, so hopefully by now I would have known you, where you work and why you're taking this course. I share with you where I work, not where, I mean where I'm coming from in terms of experience and what I do from a day-to-day fashion. I'm considered as an information security and risk consultant, and I do look at business applications, technology infrastructure, information asset in general, customer information, personal information, and whatnot. I look at third-party risk, new technology risk as well. Okay, so the course format is both lecture and online. I will try to utilize both as to our advantage actually. And my approach is fairly flexible. As you can see, I'm trying to catch up and record online video for people that missed the lecture. And this is actually one of the 3 courses and when you complete these 3 courses in George Brown College or GBC, you will be able to obtain an information security management certificate. In one of our class, number 5 actually, we'll talk about information security career, and I'll talk more about what you can do, in terms of getting into this career and how you should prepare yourself. And getting one of these certificates certainly helps. At least you're trying to find out whether this is for you, whether you have interest in this field. But I can tell you that this field is actually highly in demand. Okay, so these are the course description of the 3 courses, and this is the program objective. When you completed the program, not only you had knowledge of these 3 important areas, but you also get a certificate from GBC. Okay, you can go to the website, you're probably familiar with that. And also I want to mention about the company called 3O Project Solutions. They are the company that actually worked with a few of us, myself included, and developed these sets of programs. Apart from the information security management certificate that I developed and deliver, 3O also author IT management certificate, IT project management certificate, IT service management certificate through GBC. Okay, 3O also have its own course offering, so you can go through their website, understand where they are coming from and so on. That they has been in business since 2004. They had a very close relationship with GBC, and they had consultants that deliver various IT training through GBC. Okay, so these are the subjects that we'll cover in this course. Don't get overwhelmed at this point. And this is our course schedule. The dates are fairly accurate, but use the one that I share with you in Blackboard. Okay, I think this one is perhaps Let me see. Slightly out of date, I think. Anyway, look, yeah, here's that one. I'm going to update it. So this is kind of an old slide because I already run it in the first lesson. Okay, now the first few slides, it's really background and trying to engage the group, so it may not be as effective now. I wanted to share with you there are probably many terms that you come across during your career or during your studies, such as cybersecurity, which I think the media love to use this term. You might have heard of something called network security, IT security, and information security, obviously. But for the purpose of this course, I use the term information security as an overarching subject that contains everything that you see on this slide. So all of these terminologies on this slide we will cover. Personnel security, physical security, application security, cyber security, and whatnot. These are all covered in this course called Information Security Foundation. As we springboard to the other part of the Information Security Management Certificate, I will actually have a separate course totally dedicated on cybersecurity. Cybersecurity being a topic that are so hot these days that the media really never feel tired about it. So I will explain today what cybersecurity actually means from our context, and if you come back for the cybersecurity course, you'll get a lot more information on cybersecurity. Okay, and I just circle these three terms that are used interchangeably in the past. Okay, so I use several scenarios trying to, in a class, engage the class and see where you are, and trying to create an appreciation for you in terms of how informations need to be protected. So I have three scenarios. One is about a customer contact list. Another one is about a year annual report. Another one is about your own notebook that you use within your companies. The questions are around how you should protect them, how you should dispose them, how you should keep them. Okay, so there are choices that you can choose and so on. From the class, we had good discussions as to agreeing or not agreeing some options and whatnot. But I think the point I was trying to make is that if you're working in a company, when you were asked how you should protect a customer list, your notebook, or a published annual report, it really depends on what the company decided as the policies and procedure, how employee or workers should behave. Okay, we normally would bring in our own concept about what is secure, what should be protected, how we should protect information. But I think as a company, the company should publish how employees should protect their information. And for this particular subject, companies should have something called information classification. It is an area that the company should teach their workers, their employees, how information should be classified and what classification of information should be protected in what way. All right. So the long and short of these is, for more sensitive information, which in this scale would be closer to the top, which is restricted, the more sensitive the information, the higher the classification, the more protection you have to be aware of. Whereas on the lower end of the spectrum, like the public, so if information are classified as public, meaning that this is public information, so anybody can have a look of it, so you don't really have to worry about protecting it. Okay, so the annual report that we talk about in a public company, once the annual report has been published, usually it's available on their website anyway, so the annual report will not need to be protected similar to the customer list or a notebook. So that was my point in the class. There are also subsequent information, the quick fire quiz, they're trying to gauge where you are in terms of kind of like, security to you. Like, How do you create passwords? How do you protect personal health information? If someone asks you to let them in using your card key, would you borrow it, loan it to them, and so on? Okay, so I'm gonna let you play around with that, and if you couldn't find a satisfying subject or you have question pertaining to that, come to me. Okay, so I want to share two definitions with you. These are important. The information security definitions by ISO 27001, which will have a separate lesson 5, to dive deeper into what ISO 27001 means. But from a definition point of view, I'm going to read this definition and I'm going to kind of highlight a few key points that it has. Information is an asset. Like any other important business asset, is essential to an organization's business and consequently need to be suitably protected. This is especially true or important in an increasingly interconnecting business environment. So as a result of this increasing interconnectivity, information is now more exposed to growing number and a variety of threats and vulnerabilities. This is actually a very good definition. That's why I chose to use it. So a few things here. Information we talk about, including whether it's a customer list, an annual report, or your own notebook, okay, or email or whatever, right? Information is actually an asset similar to any other business asset for the company. So traditionally, assets are referred to as something tangible, things that you can touch. So like a vehicle, like a building, maybe even like a computer. Okay, so these are tangible assets. Information are less tangible, especially if you don't printing it out. You use information, you store something in a file, you send something like a message. All those are information that are not as tangible, but it's just as critical. Because information can make the business more competitive, talk about innovation and new algorithm and so on. Information about the customer, you have to be protected, because if it's being breached, customer will lose trust in you, so they will go to somewhere else. Okay, and then the second point about that is the increasing nature of how information are being collected, used, and shared among stakeholders, including your customer, including your third-party supplier, and your employees and worker and whatnot. The connectivity of this information running around over the internet increases the exposure of this information from a risk, threat, and vulnerability situation. That's why you hear kind of like endless these days about companies' customer information in their database is being breached, being hacked, being penetrated, so information are being stolen from them. Okay, so that's a classical definition that you can appreciate easily. Another definition from SANS Institute, which is a US American training company. Their definition is on the protective side. So information security refers to the processes and the methodology which are designed and implemented to protect both printed, electronic, and any other form of confidential, private, sensitive information or data. Protected from unauthorized access, use, misuse, disclosure, destruction, modification, and disruption. So this definition is good in a way that it shows you the vulnerability, the threat, and the risk of protecting information. First, the information we are talking about are confidential, private, and sensitive information. There are information that are considered as public that we don't really have to worry about too much. But if they are not public information, they fall into the category of confidential, private, and sensitive. Okay? The way that we are protecting information is from unauthorized access, misuse, unauthorized use, disclosure, destruction, unauthorized modification, or disruption to the system that support those information and make those information available. Okay, good definition. So the role of information security. Okay, this is important to know because I emphasize that because I'm teaching this course not as a academic nature, but as a real life experience, then I wanted to share with you, okay, what is the actual realistic role of information security that are perceived in a business world? We are, so when I say we are, of course, I'm referring to myself as being an information security professional. Our mission is to support the business, not to support technology in general, not to support information security technology. So whatever we do is for the best of the company. Okay, so if the company has a goal to make profit, that's what we support the company to do. So as a result, there is a fine line between whether we are implementing sufficient amount of security to protect the company's mission. Okay, so often I use this example as being an information security professional or an IT professional. We had this tendency to purchase, to implement the latest, greatest, innovative technology, forgetting that what we're doing is actually to support the business. If the business does not really need those gadgets or those features or those functionalities, then we do not have to implement them. So that's where we find, where do we stop what is considered as sufficient. So as such, I think one of the challenge that information security professional needs to do is to keep the balance between how much risk the company can withstand or tolerate, and then the cost benefit of what we do. Okay, we might be investing a lot more than what the damage would realize. So that's a cost benefit. So you spend $2 million to provide this network security, but then even if it's breached, it only costs maybe $500,000. So that's not justified. Okay, and often we do that, right? And also, information security professionals are considered as risk advisors. Okay, we don't make the decisions. We do the research, we do the analysis, we do the assessment, we make recommendations. The business leaders eventually, based on their risk tolerance, based on their business priorities, they make decisions based on our recommendation as well. Okay, this one is actually a repeat, but I use a different graphic, so I should remove this one in the future. Okay, so in this course, in this lesson, I'm going to introduce to you 3 triangles. Okay, and each of these triangles illustrate some principles of security. Okay, you need to remember this because I think going through this course and the subsequent 2 other courses, this 3 triangle will come back time and time, so that you can understand, you can agree, you can appreciate how security fits in. The first one is called a CIA triad, or principle of security. C stands for confidentiality, I for integrity, A for availability. Confidentiality, it's something that we can easily appreciate. We are protecting information from unauthorized disclosure. We don't want people to know how much money our CEO, our CFO is making. So that's confidentiality, right? We don't want people to know the health information, health situation of our patient if you work in a hospital. Okay? We don't want people to know of our latest, greatest innovation. Those are proprietary information, and we'll lose our competitive edge. I often use this famous drink, soft drink, Coca-Cola. They lock away their recipe, how they make the taste they make, in the vault, and only a few people actually have access to the Coca-Cola recipe. Okay, now apart from confidentiality, another aspect is called integrity. Integrity is the accuracy of the data. Okay, we understand we're protecting the confidentiality, not letting unnecessary people know about the content of the data, but we have to also remember we need to make sure that those data we are protecting are actually accurate. So integrity means preventing any unauthorized modification of data. Now, this is not hard to imagine. If you had a schedule of when to release the product and testing the product and so on, if some bad guys go in, modify your date, then it will, everybody will get thrown off, right? And So like the formula we talked about, if people modifying the proportion of the formula, then it won't be the same. So the integrity or accuracy of the data is just as important from a principle of securities perspective. So not only we want to prevent unauthorized access, we have to prevent unauthorized modification, which is just important if not more. The third aspect often being overlooked is what we call availability. So availability is making sure that there is timely access to the resources as appropriate. Often we have so many layers of protection, it makes accessing the data or making the data available difficult. And also server that we are relying on to do our normal operation, some bad guys will try very hard to actually bombard our server or network to make things not available to us. So that's protection of security as well. Okay, if we put different systems which represent different data in this triangle, I'm just going to give you a few examples. An HR system would definitely have a lot of confidential information you want to protect from unauthorized access. Okay, so the idea is that putting in context, how bad would it be if information was exposed? Okay, like, you know, Coca-Cola's formula, if it's exposed, then it will be totally disastrous, because Coca-Cola or whatever your company is will lose the competitive edge with that confidentiality being exposed. The second one is integrity. So business record as to, you know, so and so company, you know, has this contract with us and this is our relationship. That's our book of record. If that information is being modified and become inaccurate, so the question is, how bad would it be if the information is lost or is being modified unknowingly? If you know those informations are being modified, then you will not trust the information, which is okay. But if you do not know the information is being modified, then you still trust the data, which you are trusting wrong data. Then you make this decision based on all this inaccurate information. Availability. We talk about, so we look at sales tools, production systems, and web servers. So all these things are facing the internet, and we rely on them so much because we wanted to make sure that if by the time you need the information, we can get them, right? So how bad would it be if the information is not available when needed? Okay, so good to talk about here is the opposite of CIA. Okay, so confidentiality, the opposite is disclosure. So things are being disclosed to people that they shouldn't be. And we will talk about all these, like what is social engineering, shoulder serving, is like people look over your shoulder and try to read off from your screen. So that's unauthorized disclosure. You might be working some confidential stuff, but then people walk by and try to peek and try to find out, you know, what you're reading. Social engineering is people trying to, you know, cheat you by sharing information with them, you know, and that's social engineering. Okay, we'll talk about that. We actually had a good video in the fourth lesson, an actual, you know, social engineering situation. Integrity. The opposite side of integrity, of course, is alternation. Okay, the alternation or modification of data could be intentional or could be accidental. Intentional would be done by, you know, bad guys or even employees with a bad intention. It could be accidental too. I mean, as part of your business process, there's a flaw in the business process, so information are being updated without being double checked. So there is a opportunity to create or inject error into your business data. So that's alternation or and affecting integrity. The last one is called availability. So the opposite of availability is actually destruction, and I would say disruption as well. So you may or may not know that DOS and DDoS, those are referring to as denial of service or distributed denial of service. So what that means is that the bad guys are using many computers and try to send information or to the website and overload the web server so that it will crash. so that real customer cannot get it. We're not talking about one computer, 10 computers. We're talking about thousands of computers sending the same thing to the server just to overload the server. So we make the server unavailable. Okay, so that's a strategy for the bad guys to make information from the company not available either to the public or to their own employees. This link has a little video that they talk about that, and if you're interested, you can click that and you watch that. I think a 2-minute video. What is a DDoS or what is DOS? Okay, so we need to protect CIA, and some of the things we talk about here. This is totally non-technical. In order to protect protect CIA confidentiality, integrity, and availability, there are different things the company can do. Separation of duty, so no one person will have the keys to everything. Okay, obviously. Least privilege, what that means is all employee would start with the minimal amount of privilege, like access privilege, and only grow if they need them. Okay, so when you issue privilege access for employee, you only give them the minimal in order to do their job, nothing more. Another one is about need to know. Often people are just nosy. They just are curiosities about wanting to know things that they have no business in. I'll give you a good example. Many years ago, I think there was, I think it's Maple Leaf. The coach was having a surgery in Mount Sinai, and it's supposed to be a private information unless the coach wanted to share with the world, with the public. But in this case, there was 2 workers in that hospital somehow aware of, I don't know whether they actually saw them, but aware of these coach check into the hospital. So they actually pull up the record of that coach and realize that this coach is coming in for whatever surgery he was doing, and then they sell that piece of news to the newspaper. Obviously they get paid, so it leaked out in the newspaper before the coach actually wanted to share or not share. That's totally his or his privacy, right? So eventually this couple of hospital workers get fired and terminated the job. But that's the thing, right? If they are not providing care for the patients, they should not have the need to know. Now, in this case, they actually violate the company policy. That's why they get fired, terminated. Mandatory vacation. So what is that, Michael? You were asking. In a lot of work, especially for high-risk job, they are either too intense and there's too easy to burn out, and the company wanted to make sure that they had enough time to relax away from the job, so they have mandatory vacations. Okay, so every 6 months they have to take a couple of weeks off. Now, this is true not just for IT guys. This is true for those trading people, like people that are moving millions of money every day. You know what I'm talking about, right? Traders. Okay, they have this mandatory vacation because you don't want them to make mistakes just because they're too overworked. They get burned out and stuff like that, right? Another one is job rotation. Okay, this is common in the bank. So your branch manager usually get rotate their job every 2 to 3 years. You don't want them to be in a branch too entrenched, know all their customers, and who knows, someone promote them or do some fraudulent activities because it's just so familiar with that particular setup. So job rotation, it's a tool to protect CIA. And last but not least is thorough control. So for any highly sensitive, so we're talking about database configuration, backup, or system reconfiguration and so on, you need 2 keys. Okay, so 2-person log in with 2 different passwords of their own before certain action can be taken, like backup or shutdown of the database and whatnot. So in a real life situation of information security, we are information security professional. We are to establish effective information security governance and best practice in a company. So we are totally responsible for anything in security within the company. How the governance should look like, what are the best practices, policies and procedures, etc., etc. Those are very important to the company and must be the role of information security. Okay, it is also protecting information. Okay, no other people's job. It must be the information security professionals' job is to protect information. How do we protect? So that involves detecting, handling, managing information risk. This will include, preventing virus attack, preventing malware, preventing any loss of IT assets, and any information breach, or how to handle them. Okay. Also, closing gaps. Often, when we have the policies and procedures, about how things should happen within the company, there would be from time to time gaps in some of those controls or safeguards. Okay, so your job is to close those gaps if possible, and making sure that the day-to-day business process is has a very low risk. Okay. Enhance security practice in business application, IT infrastructure, and external hosting environment. More and more now we talk about the term cloud computing, meaning that we are outsourcing our data, even our applications to cloud environments, so that we don't really have to keep all these server or network in-house. So this becomes very, very viable for smaller company or even for larger companies, because keeping up a data center is very expensive. And if there's a cloud service offering you a much better cost and benefit analysis, a lot of companies go for the external hosting environment. But since they are external, okay, you have limited control over how they should be behaved from a security point of view. So that's a challenge. Okay, we will talk about that as well. The last bullet, but not the least, is conducting training and awareness program for all company staff. All right, you may not be the person actually standing up, talking, and training them. Okay, the employees, but you are responsible in creating that program or hiring trainer to come in to train your staff. But the information security professional should be the one to think about that, plan about that, develop that, and implement them. Okay, although that might involve some other third parties like a training company or something like that. Okay, real world security. Okay, I think one of the few things is important is that we have to know why you are doing this, who is after your information, why they want it, how they can do it, and what you can do. So let's take a look at that. And one of the things that right off the bat I have to tell you is that it is impossible to eliminate all of the risks. So we might as well accept the fact that the threats, there's a lot of threats out there, and we do have vulnerability on our system, on our people, but we can only do so much. And what we have to do in terms of eliminating all the risks that are relevant, that are important to us, based on the risk acceptance or tolerance of the executive. Remember, we talk about that. We determine sufficient security. Okay, we cannot eliminate everything. Okay, so that's second triangle. I probably used 3 triangles, security triangle. This is the second security triangle. The first one was the CIA, called the security principle. The second one is called a security triangle. Basically, it's nothing really magical here. It's basically telling you, in an information security context, there are basically 3 main areas that we have to be paying attention. One is the physical aspect. Okay, even though your company may have a lot of people working from home, or you have everything is put on a network, but there is still a physical element to your company's security, because people still come back to work in a physical building, and the actual server, the network still stored in a data center or data server room, which is physical. So if you don't control the access to those sensitive area, or even just your office, then one of your side of your triangle, physical, it's open for vulnerability. Okay, and then on the left hand side of the triangle, it's called cyber. This is the one that I talked about that are getting a lot of attention from the media. When I say cyber, okay, in this context, refer to the technical side of security. So these are talking about network, talking about router, we're talking about firewall, talk about server, different operating system like the iOS or the Mac or Windows or Linux and so on. So that's what we're talking about, the technology side of things. Okay, this is obvious, right? Whether your firewall is preventing unauthorized people to come in, accessing your network, and so on. So a lot of things that in the cyber security arena is just as important in the security triangle. Another angle is your people. Okay, so that means that you may have the best physical security, you know, all these fences, all these cameras, all these biometric control people going in the room and so on, and then you have all these network security protecting and 2-3 password to get in and so on. But if you don't hire your people with the intention of checking their background, making sure that they don't come with a hidden agenda to come into your company with the intention of stealing information from you or stealing trade secret from you, then you're missing that particular side of the security triangle. Okay, and in fact, this subsequent three slides talk about that. I just kind of give you an overview, so I'm not going to go through deep of each one of them: physical, people, and then cyber. Okay, in the people, there is disgruntled employees, there's employees open for blackmail. So knowing who you hire, going through proper checking and screening, knowing that whether your employees that you wanted to hire, the candidate, it's prone to being exploited by criminals. How do we do that? If an employee has a very poor, bad credit, or they are a high-risk gambler, then they would run into a situation, they owe the bad guys a lot of money, and bad guys know that, he actually had a very highly sensitive position in this company, and will force him to do something to exploit that vulnerability by maybe stealing credit card number or even more than that, right? Contract information and so on. And that's not entirely far-fetched. It's actually quite realistic. Okay, the third triangle, all right? The third triangle is what I call a PT triangle. Now, this one is not entirely a security triangle. Okay, any business processes and any business courses we talk about, in any business situation, there's three aspects of things that happen in a company. We have people, that are workers. We have technology. Okay, absolutely. I mean, there is no company nowadays that doesn't have technology. Email is a technology, right? And then of course you have processes. Okay, and often executive will pour in money into technology, thinking that technology will solve all their problems. Now, more and more people started to know, executive also started to appreciate, not just technology, you need to have good processes. Okay, technology and processes, but they forgot about people. Okay, now apart from doing proper security checks, screening for people to come and work for you, here is not just about security. I give you an excellent example. You had the best computer technology purchased and implemented, and then you develop a good process for people to use the technology so that it become the most productive. But if your staff did not get trained or did not follow what they asked to do from a process and technology point of view, then your technology is not being used effectively, or your security will get breached because people are doing shortcut. I give you an excellent example. Often people, a company has, those card keys that swipe in and so on. And then when you exit to go to take a smoke, you come back, you swipe the card. And then, sometimes I see in company, they want to go out to smoke, but they don't want to, you bother about using the card to come back in. They'll pop out like emergency door, put a brake there to keep it open. When they finish, they come back in. That's a breach of security, and that's people. They don't follow the process. They don't follow the technology. And this is not uncommon. Okay? So again, this slide explained that, and I wanted to add in is that people, your weakest link in your security ring. Right? I mean, it's like, you have the best security technology implemented, and you have thought through all the processes, but if your people are prone to making errors, okay, then it reminds me of this statement: to err is human. So human making mistake it's unavoidable, okay, because we're human, right? But but we're not just saying that that's life. I mean, we just have to accept it. No, we don't have to accept it. The counteract of that is that's where awareness come in. Okay, in this course, we will not talk about awareness in this Information Security Foundation course, but in the Information Security Governance, Risk and Compliance course, we devote a totally one lesson that talked about training and awareness how important it is and how effective it can be in order to manage this people security. Okay, so we're almost done. In each of these lessons, I will share with you something called a tip of the day. And in this one, we just wanted to make sure that you're being cautious and suspicious and so on. And I think I have another one about secure password or strong password. We want to make sure that you use strong password, not just password with 6 characters or 4 characters. I mean, and one of the things that, especially now and more and more, that you have multiple password in multiple websites or applications. So I do actually strongly recommend that you invest in a good password manager. Password manager doesn't only work on your cell phone, but it also works on the desktop as well. So you can have password managers that help you to manage password on the desktop, on the laptop, and on your cell phone. Okay, so that's it. So I'm going to pause, and unfortunately we can't do any Q&A. So hopefully this is useful to you.